Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Pirate Radio. I am your host who needs no introduction whatsoever, and you're still not getting one. Welcome back. It's been a fun week. It's been an interesting week. Let's get some business out of the way. Still got the discount code with Die Free Co. Go buy some cool shit for your AR, some accessories, whatnot. Support a cool company, and enter code Toxic10 at checkout, and that will get you 10% off and support this crap that I do. So, anyway, let's see. How do I want to start this? Probably should have thought about that before I went live. Let's get AOC out of the way, shall we? Let's check in on AOC and see how smart she has gotten nowadays. And we will try to share a screen. There we go. Don't really need the visual so much on this as we need the audio. So let's listen to Miss Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez appearing on some podcast with some sort of puppet.
There's a certain level of wealth and accumulation that is unearned, right? You can't earn $1 billion.
That's right.
You just can't earn that.
That's exactly correct.
You can get market power, you can break rules, you can do all sorts of things. You can abuse labor laws.
Yep.
You can pay people less than what they're worth.
Yep.
But you can't earn that, right?
That's
And
right.
so you have to create a myth that since you didn't earn that, you have to create a myth of earning it. There's a certain level.
Well, there you have it. She's still a genius. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. That is a duly elected member of Congress, everyone. I believe she's been elected twice. And I don't believe it was really that close. And now she's talking about challenging Chuck Schumer for his senatorial seat. So you can't earn $1 billion according to AOC. I don't know. It seems like a few people have. What did she say? You can abuse labor laws. You can pay people less than what they're worth, but you can't actually earn $1 billion. Well, see, that's the thing is you actually can. You know, sweet thing, if you went back, I don't know, 100 years, I'm sure some dolt, although a male at the time, because, you know, this country was in a better spot than to elect some fool like you, would have been saying you can't earn $1 million. You had to steal it. You had to cheat. You had to manipulate the system. You had to do X, Y, or Z. You know, AOC, it's funny to me because I think you're in a position of power where you could do something like that, maybe, I don't know, make some laws like within the tax code or something like that. But really, you just get up there and you grandstand when you're not having businesses not come to your area that you represent, running out. I believe it was Amazon. You ran them out of there post haste because you talked about taxing them into oblivion, among other things, and backing unions and what have you. So you've actually hurt your district, at least economically. And then you go on whatever podcast this is. Yes, I know it's funny, me talking trash on a podcast that has a sitting congressperson, although one of the dumbest ones. She's not the dumbest, mind you, although one of the dumbest ones on there. But I will talk trash on anyone if they're stupid. And this podcast hoster, whoever this is stupid. She just sits there going, oh, yeah. You know, it's the age-old thing, and this will bleed into the later part of the episode here, of that the left only goes to places that are friendly to them, and this exists in a vacuum chamber. And I really shouldn't even play this because it's so stupid, so ignorant. But she's not ever going to challenge for the presidency or anything like that. She's, you know, a carb habit away from being irrelevant. The only reason anyone listens to her is because she looks good on camera. As soon as she chubs up, her face is gonna fluff up here really, really quickly, mind you. About the age of 28 or something like that. I don't know, but she's a few carbs away from being irrelevant. As the great Adam Carolla said, if she was ugly and 60, no one would even listen to her, and he's 100% correct. I paraphrased what he said, but it was something to that effect, but he's correct. People only listen to her because she's attractive. That's it. If she looked like Chuck Schumer, no one would listen to her. Hell, if she looked like Nancy Pelosi, no one would listen to her. But I digress. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of this whole thing here. Really what I wanted to talk about here is I don't care about AOC. I'm sure she feels the same way. I do care about the other side to some extent, in that you have to have this kind of counterbalance. And I've talked about it before. Most of you are well aware. There's some sort of like civil war going on within the right and the conservative world. And it's happening, and it's going to keep happening, and there's going to be a sorting. And, the Daily Wire is at they're kind of right in the middle of this whole thing, not because they're in the middle, but because they represent probably the largest kind of relevant at the current time conservative outlet. They play fast and loose with this term conservative. I don't know what that means to them. Matt Walsh is like the only person who's ever been able to articulate, at least from his viewpoint, what conservative means, conservatism, what they're conserving. He's losing based on that description, but hey, at least he has a clear vision, and that's where everything starts. So apparently Ben Shapiro basically is the Daily Wire, and the Daily Wire is, Ben Shapiro. So I'm going to use those kind of Ben Shapiro in place of Daily Wire, and possibly vice versa, but he is the face of it. Everybody knows that Ben Shapiro is the Daily Wire. He helped create it. Yeah, I believe he's, partnered with numerous people in it, and that's his baby. That's his platform. That's his company. That's all of these things. So they put out this hit piece on him. I didn't read the piece because it's like New York Magazine. You think it's going to be glowing or anything like that, or it was New York. It was one of those New York commie rags. Okay. Mentioning that they had some layoffs and what have you, but Ben Shapiro put out a video, and instead of really going after the piece itself for New York Magazine, he went after, well, let's just put it this way, everybody to his right basically caught all the heat. But it's a 13-minute video, basically 14 minutes, and I'm just going to let it play and comment, pause, all the things as I feel necessary. So here's Ben Shapiro in a video he titled, "All the Haters Can Kiss My Ass," which is, okay, so it's funny. He doesn't curse on his show, but he can type it. So, I mean, whatever. I guess I believe his viewpoint is he doesn't want to curse because parents might be listening to this with their kids in the car, and that's fine because they would have to go to Twitter and read that. And a parent should not be allowing their child on Twitter, and I agree with him wholeheartedly. So, without further ado, let's hear Ben Shapiro.
Well, hello, everybody. Sometimes here on the Ben Shapiro Show, we cover the news, and sometimes we are the news here at the Daily Wire. Well, over the past few weeks, the Daily Wire, you might have noticed, has been the subject of a bunch of hit pieces, like a veritable cornucopia of hit pieces. There was one from the Washington Post, and there was one from Puck, and then finally, there was an especially ridiculous one from the stellar journalists at New York Magazine, who literally plagiarized their hit piece from the Washington Post. So much journalisming, high-level journalisming. Well, this morning, that New York Magazine piece is lighting up the interwebs. It's lighting up X. Well, New York Magazine claims there was a time when Ben Shapiro could reasonably call himself the king of all conservative media. I don't remember that time, but it sounds cool. They said that's all over now. The Daily Wire is instituting significant layoffs. Ooh. Well, according to New York Magazine, the future of conservatism isn't traditional conservatism, like free markets, like equal rights before law, like checks and balances, like traditional virtue. That's done. The future, according to New York Magazine, is Nick.
So conservative values are free markets, he says. Okay. What free market are you talking about, where the government's involved in everything and there's corporate welfare and there are any number of mechanisms being worked on by big government? You know, you could talk about free market. Okay, that's fine. If a certain country or any country wanted to purchase, you know, let's say it's an ally of ours and they wanted to purchase ammunition or munitions or any sort of like defense tech from our defense contractors. And we could say, as the federal government, we could say, that's fine. This country is not an enemy of ours. They can purchase whatever from this company, you know, maybe not the most advanced tech or something like that. But let's say they, you know, Saudi Arabia wanted to buy some F-16s or some F-35s. And we said, that's cool. We're friends with Saudi. They need them. They can afford them. So we're going to allow them to purchase them from those manufacturers, Northrop Grumman, I believe, being one, and Lockheed being another. Doesn't really matter who. But that would be the free market. If the federal government wanted to take like a percentage of, basically tax it, that's fine, I guess, because it is leaving. You want to put like a tariff on it, that's fine. But instead, Ben Shapiro and his free markets are, well, we're going to give aid to Saudi Arabia via the Abraham Accords and some other things. And then with that aid, quote unquote, defense aid, they then will take that and pay for the F-16s and the F-35s and whatever else and all the spare parts and know-how and all of that. So that to him is the free market. That's not the free market, Ben Shapiro. So again, don't know what you're conserving, don't know what conservatism means in your eyes. But anyway, I'm going to go back a hair here and let him speak.
The future of conservatism isn't traditional conservatism, you know, like free markets, like equal rights before law, like checks and balances.
I notice he doesn't mention anything about fiscal policy, because my whole time, and I'll let this go in a second, but my whole time growing up and being into politics from basically the age 16 up till now, 42 right now, was all about fiscal conservatism and fiscal policy and not spending as much and not spending money and trying to save money and not overspending for the federal government, because we know that this has a problem and this creates inflation and creates a wage spiraling and all these different things. So I noticed, you know, he just kind of left that one out. That was kind of the biggest platform ever. But he mentions, you know, the law. I think the left believes in the law. They just view, you know, changing the laws in a certain way. You know, it's funny, too. This is the same guy that was totally for, like, censorship laws on college campuses, censorship laws and defamation laws and anti-Semitism laws across the country. So, yeah, there's that.
Is like traditional virtue. That's done. The future, according to New York Magazine, is Nick Fuentes, confirmed Nazi stan and woman hater and man who will never be able to get a human woman pregnant through natural means. Or Tucker Carlson.
You're going to notice a theme throughout this. As I've mentioned numerous times over different podcasts, different episodes of this podcast, you see, and I think I mentioned it last week, you see the right engaging in the leftist playbook, where it's not that we're not going to take down Nick Fuentes' ideas, we're not going to take down, you know, Tucker Carlson's ideas anymore. Now it's just straight up name calling, because you never actually took down the ideas. You just started name calling from the get-go. If you want to say that Nick Fuentes is some sort of Nazi apologist or some sort of like, you know, Nazi adjacent figure, or he's dabbling in circles and talking about things, even though he might be like edgelording and not really meaning these things, that these are historically very insidious, somewhat dangerous topics. No, you know, you can make that case. They never made that case. They just called him a Nazi. They just called him all these names, and they don't really understand. And I'm not a Nick Fuentes, you know, fan, or I don't really consume his content much. I see some of the clips. I've listened to him on different podcasts and things like that. I don't think they understand that he's trolling the fuck out of them. Maybe he's not trolling. Maybe he means it, but anyway, so now he's going to talk about Tucker Carlson.
Confirmed anti-capitalist and Muslim apologist and victim of demon scratching. Or maybe Candace Owens, the confirmed slanderer of widows and connoisseur of French testicles. Or Maybe Megyn Kelly. Click whoring Grandma Groiper over there. Well, New York Magazine.
Click whoring Grandma Groiper is what he calls Megyn Kelly. Mind you, he just insulted not only four people who are on the right. This is why I say that Nick Fuentes is trolling everybody, because now I guess he said he was a Democrat. But to say, excuse me, that Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and Megyn Kelly are not on the right, or they're some sort of like fringe characters, it's just nonsensical. Candace Owens is another one that I don't really consume her content too much. I thought it was funny that she was talking shit about Brigitte Macron. I never really followed it too much, but it was pretty wild. Everything I hear from people who know Candace seems to be... I'm not going to apologize or defend Candace Owens. She can do that herself very well. I do consume a lot of the Tucker Carlson stuff. He has a lot of interesting different guests on there. Calls him an anti-capitalist and Muslim apologist. I've never heard Tucker Carlson talk about being against capitalism. Maybe he gets that from the time that Tucker looked him in the eyes and said, no, I'm not for truckers being replaced by robots or autonomous vehicles. And I'm with Tucker on that. Like, if you want to take this whole AI thing and this autonomous kind of vehicle thing, and you want to integrate that with the driver, I don't think anyone on this planet, especially in the United States, especially after seeing all the H-1B fucking dots just driving into people, are going to be for autonomous semis loaded down with 80,000 pounds of stuff just flying down the road. I'm not signing off on that. I don't want that at all. I also don't want some like surnameless fucking dot with a towel wrapped around his head driving it down the road. I want some good old boy named Dale or named James or named Tom or Bob or Bill or William or whatever, or Rusty, the snowman. I want those guys who love it, who take a pride in not only driving the big rigs, but being safe with the big rigs and getting this, can of Coors to that damn state over there or whatever we're talking about. Because obviously Ben Shapiro has never met an actual trucker in his entire fucking life, ever. These are some of the most proud guys on planet Earth, and gals. I've met a lot of female truckers. It always kind of blows me away. But they're the same people at the core. They are pro-America. They are usually on the right, very hardcore, kind of Republican figures. They love this country. They love their family. They love the open road. They love the idea that they're part of this whole, they're a cog in the wheel of this bigger thing than them, and they make a damn good living doing it, and they love what they do. And I don't like seeing the dots take their jobs, and I certainly don't want to see some goddamn computer take their fucking jobs. I don't trust either of those things. So that's probably where he comes up with this whole anti-capitalist nonsense. Okay, so Ben Shapiro, in his conservatism, is pro AI taking everyone's jobs, or at least a big significant chunk of them, and taking away some sort of your personal agency, your pride, the thing you want to do that makes you, you feels good. You provide for yourself, you provide for the country, you provide for your family. You have a purpose. You have a reason to get up in the morning and go to work because you have a fucking job. Mr. Pro-capitalist here, Ben Shapiro, is going to probably tell you how, well, AI is going to do all of these great things, and we'll just give you universal basic income and come back to the whole, it's a free market thing. And he talks about, okay, so he says that Tucker Carlson is a Muslim apologist. Well, that's funny, Ben, because I was of the impression that taking a group of people and saying that they're bad was a bad thing. If you want to do that on an individual basis, I think everyone can understand that like, okay, Osama bin Laden, bad Muslim. Fair enough. Muhammad Ali, not a bad Muslim. It's the old Richard Pryor thing of you go to jail and you meet the double Muslim motherfuckers. It's the double Muslims you got to worry about. Look that up live on the Sunset Strip. I think it's one of his stand-up specials where he talks about the double Muslims. But to call him a Muslim apologist because he goes, I'm not going to hate any group of people just because you say they're bad or because some of them are bad, just like, I don't know, we're not supposed to hate, like, I don't know, the Jewish population because maybe there was a bad 1 or 2 or 10 Jews out there. I don't hate any group. I agree with Tucker Carlson. He has it based on a religious foundation of his Christianity that he's not allowed to hate any group. Okay, I like that one. See, this is the thing about like not picking and not declaring a major is I can kind of pick and choose the good parts of it, you know, which you actually can do too, whether you're talking about the Torah, the Bible, the Quran, whatever. The idea that every Muslim is a hardcore Quran thumping jihadi in the making or in the waiting, there's some sort of sheep and wolf's clothing, is really doesn't hold water when you talk about I don't know, our friends who signed the Abraham Accords, like Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia didn't sign them because October 7th kicked off, but the UAE, Qatar, I think Oman, but all of these other Gulf monarchies that are Muslims signed up, and you were all for it. It's a great thing. Fair enough. I'll say it's a great thing. But to say all Muslims are bad is just as foolish as saying all Muslims are good. You know, you could come in and say, if he apologized and said that, well, I don't think that bin Laden was bad for what he did, he had justifiable reasons, okay, then that's a whole thing. Still not a Muslim apologist. It would be a bin Laden apologist there, Benny. But I digress. No, let's get back to the Grandma Groiper, Megyn Kelly. By the way, if that's your grandma... I never had a grandma that looked like Megyn Kelly. That's all I'm going to say. Which I don't think Megyn Kelly is a grandma. She has little kids. You're not even original in this shit, Ben. You're not at all. I like how his like. I'm not going to insult him yet.
Magazine writes, quote, the collapse of the Daily Wire can be seen as a dire warning for traditional Republicans. There are two realities to Shapiro conservatism in 2026. It retains a significant foothold among Republican elites, and it is being fast rejected by the future grassroots of the parties. First of all, that's just wrong. By the polling data, the positions that we take here on the show are reflective of the broad majority of Republicans. That's just the reality. But I figured that we should address all of this head on. So it's true. The Daily Wire laid off some 13% of our workforce.
And I want to say it is sad that the Daily Wire had to lay off some folks, but for whatever that reason was, don't know. They did have some big name talent who left, like Brett Cooper, Candace Owens. I don't know. Maybe, just maybe that's why you had to do that. You brought in Candace Owens and then you turned on her because you told her she had to take a look at what was happening in Gaza. She took a look at what was happening in Gaza, didn't like it, and you turned on her. So whatever.
Since the beginning of the year. And that really sucked. It was truly sad because all those people are great. And anytime, we're in business. Anytime you lay people off as a business, that really sucks. It's tough. It's bad for them. It's bad for us. And I'm personally working to find other places of employ for as many of these people as I possibly can, because everybody who we let go deserves a job somewhere else. They're great folks. But for our critics, this was all cause for massive celebration. The joyful popping of the corks, or maybe in the case of Nick Fuentes, a victory celebration with Catboys and lubricant. And listen.
Again, another Nick Fuentes insult. Not quite sure. Listen, the only reason Nick Fuentes exists is because of Ben Shapiro. And also, Ben, I don't think you want to get into this fight, although you're already in it because of what you just did and said and all of that. So Nick's better at this than you. This is where he operates. He operates on the low side, in the gutter, in the trenches, in the fist fights, in the alleyways. This is where he operates. Not a physical, actual, literal fist fight. We all know how that would go. But we all know how that would go between both of these guys. It's like, oh, God, Jesus. It's a fight no one would want to watch. Anyway.
We're honored by the attention. See, here's the thing. People only tend to write stories like this about major American institutions, right? Like Amazon dumps people. It's a big story. Or the Washington Post dumps people. And that's a big story. And thank God we are a major American institution. According to PodTrack, our podcast reach is 41 million people per month. We're ranked 6th globally. We have a total of 11 shows. Paramount, to take an example from that same chart, is ranked 4th globally. They have 145 shows. So on a per capita basis, we're killing it. We are responsible for the 2 most successful conservative documentaries.
Oh, all of a sudden per capita is a good thing again. Anyway, moving on.
In history, Matt Walsh's Am I Racist and What is a Woman? Just this week, Vice President Vance was quoting our reporting in his fraud investigations, and our White House correspondent, Mary Margaret Olahan, is in the press room asking questions. See, here's the thing. There's no national media coverage. If a top Candace Owens producer and her manager quit, or if Megyn Kelly's YouTube account starts shedding tens of thousands of subscribers a month, or if Tucker Carlson's traffic is disproportionately drawn from Pakistan. Hey, we all have our fan base.
When it happens, maybe they'll report on it. But until then, the numbers are going up. You sound jealous. You sound a little hurt.
Those are all things that actually happen, by the way. But nobody really cares very much because, yeah, those people have significant audience numbers, but they don't have any real institutional influence. They are not institutions. That's not true of the Daily Wire. We're big enough that people care when we trip up. And of course, like any business, we have our ups, we have our downs. But as Mark Twain put it, the reports of our death are greatly exaggerated. But here's the thing. There is something else going on here. Something very clear going on here. The media left and the woke right, that'd be like Candace and Fuentes and Tucker and Megyn, all of them, together, the new left, they are attempting to...
The woke right. He wants to call them the new left. Okay, so... Let's
destroy traditional conservatism. That's the whole thing here. See, the Daily...
They want to destroy traditional conservatism. So he calls, first of all, lumping a lot of these together is not good, but Nick, Tucker, Candace, Megyn, Kelly, he calls them the woke right and calls them the new left. Funny, because you always take the tactics of the left. Because let's take your breakdown that you used to have about Ibram X. Kendi. And Ibram X. Kendi has a shitty book called How to Be an Anti-Racist or How to Not Be a Racist or whatever. But basically, his whole thing, Kendi's whole thing is if you're not actively fighting racism, then you're a racist. Whether you think it or not, you're inherently a racist if you're not actively fighting against racism. Well, Benjamin, you have adopted the exact policy when it comes to anti-Semitism. If you're not actively fighting against anti-Semitism, if you're not a pro-Israel Zionist, then you are an anti-Semite. That's how you see the whole world. If you think that there should be a two-state solution, maybe both of them should have their own thing, you're an anti-Semite. If you don't think the United States should be funding Israel in its military objectives and its military might, then you are an anti-Semite. If you believe that the Jewish population is disproportionately represented in entertainment, movies, music, etc., then you are an anti-Semite. You know, on a per capita basis, there sure seem to be a lot of very successful Jewish folks in the entertainment industry. I don't really care that they are. But if we're going to look at per capita, like you like to do when it comes to black crime statistics and, I guess, pod reach or whatever in accordance with Paramount, then I guess per capita is good. But when per capita kind of starts to, I don't know, show facts that don't coincide with your feelings, now all of a sudden we have a problem with per capita. And you're talking about traditional conservatism. You still cannot tell me what traditional conservatism is. You talked about free markets, rule of law, some other BS. Is traditional conservatism something like Mike Lee, constitutionalist Mike Lee, trying to sell a whole bunch of private or public lands to private companies and build houses and strip malls out in some of the most beautiful land in Utah and other states? Is that traditional conservatism? Because it doesn't sound like you're conserving jack shit. It sounds like you're selling it off. Oh, but that's the free market, he would say. No, it's not. Those are protected lands. Those are the public lands that the United States citizens can go on to and enjoy the beauty. Maybe we shouldn't just ravage the entire globe, and especially our country. You know, if you want to go and ravage some other land and make benefits off of it, that's fine. Just don't do it here. Go, be the empire. Do all of that. Again, that's a whole nother thing of your foreign policy creates a global empire or perpetuates the global empire that the United States inherited after World War II and being the victor of that. That is not conservatism. You're not conserving that. Barry Goldwater did not like that. Barry Goldwater, the father of modern conservatism, did not like the industrial complex, military industrial complex, and the world empire, and turning our country into a surveillance state because the Soviets were a surveillance state, so we had to do the thing that they did to battle them or some bullshit like that. That is not conservatism, Ben. It's not. That's not what it was founded on. That's not the book. That's not the thing. You conserve the lands. You conserve the people. You conserve the culture. You talk about the culture. I mean, do we have to bring up traditional families and what that means? Again, I used to think that Ben Shapiro was for a traditional family, a man and a woman with children, or maybe not. Kind of up to them. But a traditional family of man and woman in marriage. But then, all of a sudden, when it comes to defending a tiny country in the Middle East, he wants to come and tell me how pro-gay they are, and they're LGBTQ, and they're very accepting, and they don't do the things that the other countries supposedly do of throwing them off the tops of buildings and whatnot, or whatever, or stoning them, which no one has ever shown me evidence that happens in like Saudi Arabia. I guess it does happen in certain places. I don't know. Maybe they have one of those gay meters and they just put it on them and they're like, that guy's gay, and so they shoot him or they do whatever. I don't know. But what's conservative about that? You know, Barry Goldwater, again, the father of modern conservatism, not a fan of military aid to foreign countries, including ones in the Middle East. So what are the lines here exactly? I'm not quite sure what the lines are. Is it just whatever the fuck you say? And this idea that the Daily Wire is some sort of institution of what exactly? It's almost like an institution of dumbassery at times. It's an institution of contradiction. I don't know what sort of institution. If you're an institution, then the New York Times is an institution, and both of you have some sort of like equal footing somehow. And I don't see papers and online websites as being some sort of institution. You exist online. That makes zero sense. And by the way, the institutions need to be burned to the fucking ground. The institutions only exist at this point, the actual ones, if you want to talk about like Harvard and Yale and the FBI and Congress and any number of these different things, but especially like when you talk about the institutions for young people, university colleges, they only exist at this point to pump out an exact product out of the back end. So I don't necessarily need a good lawyer. I need a lawyer who is indoctrinated within the law that exists at the time that they go out, in a way of thinking. It doesn't have to do with any sort of personal liberty, any sort of personal freedom, any sort of constitutionality. It's all just some sort of like footprint, some sort of like paper trail that you go down the road and you indoctrinate and you train this dog to act this way and to fetch this frisbee. That's what these institutions are for. That's the only reason they exist at this point. Now, as I've said numerous times in the past, everything is indoctrination. You just need to indoctrinate them, the kids, if you will, and the young adults, into the correct way of thinking or into your way of thinking. That's what institutions are really should be doing. But at this point, what institution is worth saving? You can try to create parallel institutions. That's really the only thing that the right, the conservatives, have ever actually kind of done. But as they do that, they get infiltrated by the leftists, like the Dave Rubin types, who is a homosexual man married to a guy named David, which will never not be funny to me, who bought 2 kids. So you're infiltrated by the thing that is non-conservative. All conservatism is, at this point, is liberalism going the speed limit. You have 2, if not 3 of those people you listed, 2 of them for sure, Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly, who are to the right of you, and you cannot fucking stand it, so you have to lump them in with 2 people who may or may not be fucking crazy, may or may not be trolling, I don't know, but to say that like Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly are outside of the realm or outside of bounds or crazy or insane or rabid or any sort of thing like that is absolutely, completely off the rails. You've lost the plot completely. The idea that those 2 are some sort of out of bounds or you know, off the reservation is just nonsensical on its face. You're talking about 2 people who don't hate anyone and don't hate any group and don't hate any country, But the idea that they would ask questions about any certain country or countries all of a sudden becomes a problem. And now the only reason they can say that is because someone's paying them to say it. Well, who's paying you to say what you say? This thing works both ways. That's the whole thing. When you never take on the argument, you never sit down and debate these things, you never actually can dispel the myth and the rumor and all of these things. So people have to assume the same about you. When you make the accusation, it's just going to come right back to you because it's a baseless accusation. You have no proof of it. You have some of these minions that exist online that then tell you this thing and that thing, and you try to piece it together. You're like Charlie Day at the damn chalkboard with all the lines going like, I finally got it. I told you, like this right here. And it's like you never have any sort of evidence of anything. It's all just hearsay. You would think that a lawyer would understand what hearsay is and understand that this is not a basis for any sort of thing. This is not a basis for any sort of case that can hold water. It's all just cheap shots over the internet. And you never actually enter the arena with the people you talk shit on. The second you have a falling out with them, whether it's Tucker, whether it's Megan, you just cut and run like the little bitch that you are. That's all you do. And then you go behind your little microphone. Yes, I understand. I'm doing the same thing. But you go behind your microphone and talk about how great you are and how great everything is going and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And yes, you built a wonderful company. You built a big company, a pretty sizable company that does a lot of good things or used to do a lot of good things. It kind of started to derail with the line of just get the jab, dopes. Somewhere in there, it started to derail, but let's let him keep going.
Wire is the largest traditional conservative media company in the digital space by like a ton, by leaps and bounds. We are multiple times the size of any of these others. We have lots of conversations on our platform between our various hosts about topics ranging from AI to the Middle East, on Catholicism and Judaism and all of it. There's a lot of rich disagreement here at the Daily Wire. But in the end, what we stand for here at the Daily Wire is pretty simple: truth and virtue and freedom. And that is what the new left, meaning, the old left and the horseshoe right, would love to destroy.
The horseshoe right. This is a nonsensical thing. The idea that Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly are trying to destroy the right is also, it's just laughable. Because you're on the left. You're doing the leftist thing. One of the things that so many people don't understand is that where neocons came from, and Ben Shapiro now is becoming a neocon if he's not full on. Neocons came from Bolshevism and were Trotskyites. When Leo Trotsky got kicked out of the Soviet Union in the power struggle between him and Joseph Stalin, because Joseph Stalin wanted to stop it at the borders of that current Soviet Union, and Trotsky, who was taking on Lenin's Bolshevist dream of perpetual revolution throughout the globe and making it expand beyond the Soviet Union borders and becoming this worldwide thing. Stalin went, "You're out of your element here, man. Get the hell out. We're stopping it right here. We got plenty." And that is why the neocons, so the original neocons were Trotskyites. They were trained by the teaching of Leo Trotsky. And so that's why you have this whole neocon thing of perpetual wars, endless wars, always starting to wars in all these different places. It's kind of that perpetual revolution, only with some sort of like American twist, but it's really just a money grab and it's a way to enrich yourself. And it's really, really bad. And so when he sits there and talks about the new left and this horseshoe, political horseshoe or whatever the hell he calls it, his whole belief is that on the left, you have a whole bunch of anti-Semites who hate America and blah, blah, blah. And then in the middle is going to be him because he's like based and conservative and whatever. And then as you keep going to the right, the conservatives, people on the right, it horseshoes around and you end up at pretty much the same part where you just vary on like some minor details. But in his mind, you both are anti-Semites who hate America. That's where he gets the horseshoe from. Anyway.
It's why the attacks have been coming fast and furious for weeks now. They want to destroy traditional conservatism. It is their goal in life. They want to destroy it for a couple of different reasons. The left.
So you're telling me the people that have husband, wife, and multiple kids are trying to destroy conservatism, and you can't even define what conservatism is other than free markets in which we have to prop up other countries, let them buy things with our money, And then, Mike Lee trying to sell off public land.
For one reason, the woke right for another.
Woke right.
In our supposed vulnerability, people from Nick Fuentes to Tucker, from Candace Owens to New York Magazine, from the Washington Post to Megyn Kelly, they see an opportunity to supplant traditional conservatism with a conspiratorial, grievance-addled, nutty version of populism. Or, in Megyn's case, just make some quick clicks and cash. It's a lucrative grift. It's a dangerous grift for America. So why is this happening? Well, obviously, for the media left, we get it. We get it. For the media left, we get it. They're always happy to run this grift because they love a right that is crazy. They don't want a right that is characterized by normie beliefs. They want a right that's nuts, because the easiest way to make AOC president in the 2028 election is to have that nutty lady run against a conservative movement that is focused on Brigitte Macron's testicles or demon attacks in the wilds of Maine, or why the Jews are responsible for your incurable gingivitis and horrific body odor and inability to get a date. Now, as for the woke right, the new left, again,
it's just personal attack, ad hominem attacks after ad hominem and personal attacks. It's pathetic.
And that would be Fuentes and Tucker and Candace and company. They're ecstatic about.
Mind you, all of the people he keeps talking about are bigger than him now.
All of this for both business and political reasons. One, they're our competition. But second, they want to tear down traditional conservatism. Their whole goal is to cannibalize the traditional conservative audience. There are, by all available metrics, a hell of a lot more traditional conservatives and rational people in this country than nuts.
It'd be nice if you could, maybe tell us what that is.
But their goal is to gut the conservative movement and then turn it into a skin suit for their own perverse politics. That's the whole thing, which is why many of them are now coming out as Democrats. That unity is the thing. This is why Russia Today is the official outlet for the Kremlin, right? It is run by the Russian government, is retweeting Nick Fuentes' triumphalism today. Fuentes tweeted out, "I won," after that New York Magazine piece came out, and Fuentes won.
So now retweets are endorsements, like your best buddies. So every time I retweet you, does that mean you're into guns and shit and you're cool and could actually defend yourself in a fist fight? I don't think it does.
Well, I don't know. Living in your basement and streaming for 8 hours a day while jacking off to the Catboys, it's a form of winning, I said. All right.
Bro, you sound really butthurt by the whole thing. Every time you insult Nick Fuentes, you sound just so it's so high school girly kind of shit. Sit down in a room and debate the kid then. If you're so much better than him, you're so much more talented, you're so much more successful, then sit down in a room, have a moderator, do whatever you want, sit down in a room and debate the kid. Have him on. Quit being a bitch.
I mean, whatever floats your boat, my dude. You might call the Russia Today Fuentes get-together an online Molotov-Ribbentrop pact. Well, it's also why the Washington Post is happy to quote Candace Owens, the ranting bag lady of the internet, to explain that the Daily Wire's numbers are down. Again, that alliance between the left and the woke right is totally real, and it's active. This is why they are getting together to formulate stories. It is why they are repeating the same talking points. Now, Candace says that
this feels like propaganda from the get-go. This is all just propaganda. It is fear-based, fear-mongering propaganda that they're coming for you. These forces are getting together. They're working in the shadows behind you to take over. It almost sounds like something someone said way back in the day before he goose-stepped off.
That the Daily Wire's numbers are down because people don't want to be lectured. And this is the teenage point of view from Candace and Megyn and Tucker. They're all saying the same thing. They don't want to be lectured. Don't lecture me. Megyn tweeted in March 2026, "You're the coward, Ben, and your moral preening, priggish lectures and holier-than-thou judgments are the reason you are losing fans, and more than that, friends, at a record rate."
People don't want to be lectured, you douchebag. They don't want to be insulted. They don't want to be treated like they're stupid. Maybe they just want to hear somebody have an honest conversation with someone. Maybe it can be a pointed conversation. Maybe it can be a tough conversation. Maybe it can be a tough interview. Maybe it can be a somewhat easy interview. Or maybe it could just be two dudes who kind of know each other talking about stuff, and then you filmed it with microphones. But This coming down from on high and telling people how it's going to be and how it is and how this is going to be and how everyone's out to get you, and this whole like I'm a victim. That's the other part of this is like I thought the left always played the victim card. You're playing this some sort of victim card while you're successful, but you're a victim. But I'm successful. I'm so successful. Look how successful I am in my institution. But I'm a victim of these dark forces that are maligning behind me and against me. Here's the thing. If you were so successful, you were so secure in your position as the actual conservative leader, actual conservative person on the right, I don't have to worry about anything. You wouldn't even be talking about this. It would make zero waves. It's almost like it doesn't exist. It's like a satellite moving through space. I guess it's there. Don't really look at it. Don't care. As long as it doesn't hit me in the face, what do I care? But you sound butthurt, Ben.
All these people are on the same script. They're all on the same script. And also, because as people who traffic in crap for sweet, sweet lucre, they would love to be spared the lecture. They don't want to be lectured as they grift. So they're going to do the same thing that, a 13-year-old boy would do if caught doing naughty things on his iPad. They don't want to be lectured. Don't you lecture me. Well, it turns out sometimes in life, people need lectures in decency, in reason, and in truth. People who smear the wives of murdered men or cover for people who smear for the wives of murdered men.
Candace is wrong to go after Erica Kirk. I will say that. It's not something I would ever do. But this idea that anyone who knows her now has to disown her and has to just shun her away into oblivion or whatever, also not right.
Those people deserve lectures. Maybe the people who revive Nazi propaganda. Maybe the people who have a weird interest in the non-existent testicles of.
It's funny talking about reviving Nazi propaganda as you just talked about some sort of dark malign forces working against you in secret. And that's why you have to get together and we are the only one true truth. And we must align against those powers that are maligning against us.
Of the spouses of French politicians. Or maybe the people who make a cause with actual Nazi stands. Maybe those people deserve lectures. Maybe the people who are repeating talking points from Hassan Piker and mimicking the propaganda of Vladimir Putin. Or people who just randomly start cursing so much and are hanging out with the Groyper adjacent and embracing Islam. Maybe those people deserve lectures. I don't know. Well, listen, there's always a big YouTube audience for that sort of crap. But let's be real. There's a massive online audience for pornography as well. People addicted to both deserve a bit of a lecture. But let's get back to the central issue. The point of the attacks on the Daily Wire is, of course, not just to attack the Daily Wire. It's to destroy traditional conservatism. That's the whole thing, the entire thing, all of it, every bit of it. That's the whole thing. The reason they are coming after the Daily Wire is because they want to come after you. They want to come after traditional conservatives who believe traditionally conservative things. It is no coincidence that at the same time, the Washington Post and New York Magazine and all the rest of these legacy left publications are attacking the Daily Wire. They're also writing strange new respect features on Neg Fuentes and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson. The left wants those people.
Shout out Marjorie, you finally got mentioned.
To win. By the way, they're not hiding it very well. New York Magazine's piece says, quote, like the Rockefeller Republican of yore, the Shapiro Republican could go extinct entirely. That's what they want. Right? They want traditional normie Republicans to go away. It's what they want, and it's what they hope for. And listen.
You know what they really want, Dumbo? Is they want more of what you're doing right now. They're driving the wedge deeper. You guys came up with the wedge. You couldn't get along, all because Ben's feelers got hurt, and now they're driving the wedge deeper, and you allowed them in, and you're too stupid to understand it. I like this kind of Fox News curve that, or arc that Ben Shapiro's on. I don't really like it, but hey, man, do what you got to do. Have fun failing.
Maybe it will turn out that all these people who hate conservatism and what I consider to be traditional American principles, maybe they're right. Maybe it'll turn out that the future of the right, perverted by the algorithmic insanity of the internet, is sloppulism. The Tucker-style grievance conspiracism, complete with the night-scratching demons. Or Candace Owens' usual brand of kookery. Or Nick Fuentes' transgressive Nazi cosplay. Or Theo Vaughn's man-child podcast illiteracy. Maybe.
Not sure why we're throwing shade at Theo Vaughn, dog. He's never claimed to be anything other than a comedian just wanting to know, why are we doing X, Y, or Z? Why are we involved in this? Why is this happening? Again, I'm sure you're more than welcome to go sit down with Theo, who's a man-child, who obviously you would run laps around verbally because you're so goddamn smart. I'm sure he would have you on, Ben. Go sit down with Theo Vaughn. But you're too much of a coward to even sit down with fucking Theo Vaughn. No offense to Theo Vaughn.
Maybe that's where the right goes. Maybe that's what comes next. Maybe that's all facilitated by the click horn.
By the way, I'm not sure what Theo Vaughn's politics are, other than human. He just doesn't want to see people get hurt, get killed, get destroyed. I've been to Theo Vaughn's concerts. I've listened to a bunch of his podcasts and him on other podcasts. Never really heard him say anything left, right, or whatever. I mean, he goes to the UFC events. He shows up early and loves that shit. I guess maybe that makes him on the right. I don't know. There's probably a lot of people who are on the left or liberal going to UFC events. Probably not as many people on the right, but hey, not sure why Theo Vaughn's catching strays here. Little bastard.
Of the Megyn Kellys of the world, and justified by an appeal to audience numbers, because none of these people ever appeal to morality. They just point to their clicks. Maybe Idiocracy wasn't the...
They don't point to morality, they just point to their clicks. You sound obsessed with clicks. As a guy who doesn't get many clicks, I'm definitely not obsessed with clicks. Be nice to get more, but at some point I'm going to pass your little ass.
Satire. Maybe it was a prophetic documentary. But here's the thing, from where I sit. That does not change one single thing for me. Not a single thing. See, here's the thing. I've been doing this since I was 17 years old. I started off when I was 17 years old writing a syndicated column on politics. I didn't do that because I wanted to get rich that way. That's not how you get rich. I got into politics because I cared about the truth, about saying things that I believe to be eternal and true, because I care about the ideas of conservatism. It's why I've done that for all these years. I care about free markets, and I care about private property, and I care about equal rights before the law, and checks and balances, and the Constitution. I care about all of those things. I care about the America that the founders promised us, and the America that our parents and grandparents fought and worked for.
Do you? Because I don't think you do.
And I'm not going to lie for cash. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to tell you about the wonders of Moscow supermarkets or the glories of Sharia law in Qatar. I'm not going to pander for clicks by pretending that Erica Kirk might have been complicit in Charlie Kirk's murder, or that perverse and malicious questions about TPUSA's cover-up are somehow a bizarre form of investigative journalism.
And by the way, the founders, the country that our founders laid out in the Constitution and all that, where were you at on the COVID thing, bud? Kind of a little Tijuana moment there for you. God's little blind spot.
I'm not going to wink and nod at the transgressiveness of the Nazi incels, or chuckle along with people who pretend that a conspiratorial elite are the reason your life isn't everything that you want it to be. In the freest and most prosperous country in world history, I'm going to be grateful for America, and I'm going to point out what's great about America and what our principles are. I'm not going to do any of that other stuff, because here's the thing. I got into this business to do precisely the opposite. I haven't changed my principles. I've been doing this for 25 years. I have not changed my principles. Now, there's a question that I get a lot these days, a lot. From friends, from family. People will come up and they'll say, what happened to all these people? Yeah, they understand New York Magazine and Washington Post and what they are, but what happened to, Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson or Megyn Kelly and all the rest? And I don't know the answer because I'm not a psychiatrist. But here's what I do know. Nobody has ever asked that question about me. No one, because my worldview has not changed. It has not changed. My principles haven't changed because I think those principles are true and good. And those principles are not going to change. So, in the end, take it or leave it.
In 20 years, his worldview has not changed. Let that sink in. Ben Shapiro is he's 42 or 43. I don't know when his fucking birthday is, but he and I are basically the same age. So for 20 years, he mentioned starting this at 17. Let's just give him the benefit of the doubt and say since he was 23 years old, his worldview has not changed whatsoever. That would put his worldview stuck in 2003. Potentially post-Iraq invasion, potentially pre-Iraq war invasion. Nothing changed at that time, Ben? You're still pro-Iraq war. You're still pro taking on the Taliban and spending 20 years in Afghanistan. You're still pro-war in Somalia, which exists today. We're still bombing Somalia right now. You're still pro all of that. Nothing changed. You didn't see that, hey, maybe we should just if we're going to invade a country and we do want to overthrow said country, maybe we go in, overthrow the government or take out the bad guys and leave. But no, you're still in on nation building. He's giving away the game in Iran, by the way. I mean, these are the guys that are the inner circle, him and the Mark Levins of the world, that are the inner circle of the Trump administration now that Tucker Carlson's been ostracized from it. So he's giving away the game. He's telling you that the next step with Iran, when this shit kicks off again, is boots on the ground and a 20-year war or a 10-year war and thousands of American troops dead, body bags filled, caskets draped with American flags. Mind you, by a guy who never ever served, never thought about serving. Instead, is some fucking nerd from Los Angeles who's been writing papers since he was 17 about politics and telling you how foreign policy should work, although he's never actually experienced foreign policy. I don't know, Ben. I tend to get my, war opinions from guys who actually went and fought it. I'm not one who went and fought it. I know a number of guys who went and fought it. I know a number of guys who are missing an arm, a leg, a finger, who have shrapnel wounds, who are actually in the shit. And you know what they say? I don't want my kids doing that. These are stars and stripes dudes, hardcore motherfuckers. Some of them saw a little bit of combat. Some of them saw a lot of combat. And you don't find very many of them, if any at all, that are in on going back and doing this shit again in Iran, especially when you're talking about the country that you supposedly care about, dickhead, is decaying right before our eyes. We've got homeless populations in every major city, even in Tulsa, Oklahoma. There's homeless people everywhere. They're all over the place. There's no one doing anything about it. You can talk about roads and infrastructure and bridges and all that, but just on the common man thing, you just see people who are deranged, drug addicted, drunk, whatever they are, mentally ill, wandering around major cities all over. But what Ben Shapiro is worried about is that his worldview has not changed in 20 years. You know what has changed in 20 years, Ben Shapiro? The fact that the homeless population has exploded in my hometown of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Yeah, there were a few bums downtown here and there, whatever. It just kind of always happens in every major city. It's never going to be zero, but now they're everywhere. They're under every goddamn underpass. They're walking over across 4 or 8 and 6 lane highways, some of them getting hit, some of them getting killed, and forget the property damage. Imagine the person has to live with that who hit this poor bastard in the middle of the night just driving down the highway. Now he gets to live with that. But no, what Ben Shapiro is worried about is his worldview hasn't changed since Iraq War 1. How is that possible? Are you that dense? Are you that, just completely retarded? You've never grown up. Your mind hasn't changed one thing in 20 years in your worldview. That is the definition. Where the term retard comes from is a distributor on a car. You can advance the timing or you can retard the timing. Well, his timing has been retarded. Let's let him finish.
If people decide they don't want to hear it, it's a free country. That's their choice. But I am willing to bet my future and the future of America that more Americans agree with me than agree with the people who want to destroy the Daily Wire. I'm betting there are a lot more rational people in this country than conspiracy-mongering nut jobs. I'm betting that there are way more...
Again, just ad hominem attacks. Conspiracy-mongering nut jobs.
More people in America who believe in truth and virtue and freedom than people who revel in grievance and demoralization and stupidity. And again, maybe I'm wrong.
As he levies a 13, almost 14, call it 14-minute grievance.
Maybe we lose. But here's the thing. That also doesn't change a thing. It doesn't change a thing. It doesn't matter. Because the only thing that matters is the only thing that has ever mattered to me. Speaking the truth, whether people like it or whether they don't. Because facts still don't care about your feelings. This is The Ben Shapiro Show.
And the facts don't care about your feelings, Ben. Not at all. They don't care about your feelings at all, because the fact is you're on the downward trend at this point. You have ostracized yourself from the conservative movement. You have boxed yourself into a corner. You're apparently, you're not America first. There's not that. You can't say that. That's a lie. And you talk about the truth. Well, you're lying to yourself. Oh, I care about the Constitution. I love the country that our founders promised. No, you don't, because you're for gun laws. You're a liar. You're for speech laws. So you're a liar. You're an absolute fraud, liar, grifter. And it's been a good grift. Good for you. But to come out and insult all of these other people who have surpassed you, who used to be your friends, some your former employees, and you've just completely stabbed them all in the back out of pure, unadulterated jealousy. You don't have to agree with them. You can think that people who believe that JFK, there's a bigger conspiracy there, you can say, oh, they're just conspiracy nut jobs or whatever. That's fine. I don't quite understand why you'd go that far. You can say that you believe what we've been told. That's fine. If you want to, play the blind man, that's fine. You can believe in any number of things that you want to believe in, just like they can believe any number of things that they want to believe in. No one's getting hurt in those things. Just because you have a conspiracy that ticks and were created to like spread disease or not West Nile, but the Rocky Mountain spotted fever or whatever it is. Okay. I don't know, man. You don't have to engage in this shit. But it's not beneath you. It's never been beneath you. You've always been a little high school girl. See, that's the thing, too, is like you talked about, you talk about a guy who made his bones like debating kids on college campuses. But when it comes down to actually people who know things and can articulate a point and can defend that point and can argue with him, he's nowhere to be found. Oh, let's go to I'll go to an interview on with Coleman Hughes, and it'll just be really nice. We'll just talk shit about everybody else. We'll never get asked a hard question. Never. Oh, let's go do a college campus thing, and we'll make fun of some, young person who thinks that trans is this, that, or the other, or whatever. It's like, okay. Or you could go sit down and actually, talk to one of these people. You could sit down with Tucker Carlson. I'm sure he'd do it. You could sit down with Nick Fuentes. You could probably sit down with Candace Owens. I don't think she's, below that or above that or whatever you want to say. You could sit down with Dave Smith. You could sit down with, hell, you could go on Joe Rogan. You could sit down with Theo Vaughn. Again, you should be able to run laps around Theo Vaughn because he's some sort of man-child. But no, you don't do it. You don't expose yourself to anything. And that's why your product is failing, is because all these other people expose themselves to vulnerabilities. It doesn't matter who it is. They've all exposed themselves to some sort of vulnerability where they could be exposed, and they're engaging in the arguments, and they are posing arguments and then articulating points, all of those things. You're not doing any of that. You sit behind a microphone and just scream into oblivion, why are my clicks going down? They're trying to take me down, and it's a conspiracy against me. Yeah. Who's the conspiracy nut now, dog? They've been writing hit pieces about you for years just because you are a conservative. They've been trying to find any little thing on you. But now, all the conspiracy nuts are the conspiracy nuts, and you're just fine. You're the sane one who believes in conservative principles, which you can't articulate, and whatever. You're buddies with Dave Rubin. That's all that you need to know. You're buddies with a child buyer, with a human trafficker that's just underwritten by law. So, whatever. Anyway, it's been fun. It's been real. I always like yelling into a microphone. It's been a full hour. Thanks for coming and hanging out, Merc. Even though you're late, I'll dock your pay. Don't worry. But till next time, everybody, peace out.